All right, everybody. Thank you for making it in on time for our meeting this week. This week we were talking basically about the hiring process and what we would do if we were in Steven's shoes. Steven Connor, I believe is his name. So I just the first thing that we've been asked is that we're supposed to go over the pros and cons of every candidate. Does everybody have them written down, or do you want me to go quickly over which one's which?
I have. So, are you talking about like our write-up? We have the pros and cons.
Yeah, where we were supposed to basically talk about every. They want it, or he wants it in great depth. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of our candidates.
Okay.
So I think we'll just start chronologically with Gerald. So I think I'll just start with Gerald's first interview when they were out at lunch, and how Gerald showed up 15 minutes late. And honestly, when it comes to anything to do with a first impression, especially when you're becoming a senior advisor, you got to be on time, if not early, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he was late was a huge flag that either he truly doesn't care, doesn't believe in himself, that this is an opportunity for him, or that that's just how he does his work, which would irritate me so much if I was his boss, you know? That my time isn't valuable to him. Like company time wouldn't be valuable to him. So those were the cons, and that was kind of like the big thing that I got out of Gerald's bomb. So Casey, what did you gather?
Yeah, so first I noticed that too, that he was late. And then was he the one that was also asking about like the compensation, like right off the bat, like how much he gets paid? And was that him? I'm
yes,
looking for my notes right now.
Yeah, that was him.
Yeah, and so I just feel like that was kind of maybe not necessarily a smart move on his part either, about like usually that's something you would do like after they call you in for like a second interview, is like talk about compensation like on that, because the first one you're trying to get to know the company and like seeing if you're a good fit for the company, you're trying to put on a good impression for them. And so like having like your compensation being like the first, like one of your first priorities, like I didn't think that was maybe setting the best impression for him.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie, what were your first impressions?
I wasn't very impressed. First impressions wasn't very good. He was kind of lamenting over the things he was not happy with his current employer. You know, in addition, like you said, to being late, no apology. He, discussed his disagreements with his current management and other employees, complaining about office equipment. And also, when they did the second interviews, his assistant and junior analysis refused to interview or move firms with him.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I found interesting about the copy machine is if I was hiring one of my senior advisors, somebody that I expect to lead a majority of my company, and they can't fix their own copy machine or get the means of fixing their own copy machine, that's another huge red flag for me.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's because it's such a small thing, and he's, making it a bigger deal than it actually should be. He should be able to fix the small things on a daily.
Exactly. Yeah, because just imagine a real problem.
And like being able to like take initiative, like there's a problem, I can fix it, versus trying to just like pawn it off on someone else.
So I think we can agree that Gerald was just shouldn't even got a second interview in our opinion. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to move on to David Hughes. So Casey got to talk the first last time. Debbie, I want to give you the opportunity to give your first impressions of David Hughes.
Okay. Well, he's been in the business for a long period of time. People do have a concern about a career burnout and his ability to continue to function at a high level. He does want to start limiting his travel. And there was that time when he was on vacation and he refused to come back from vacation, and he let his junior analysis take care of the issue until he returned. He just kind of said he was on vacation. So.
And Casey, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so there was like his age, but I was thinking that, I mean, yeah, he's old, and so he might be like burning out kind of, but I didn't think that was a huge like in my opinion, I didn't feel like that was a huge problem. because with his age comes all his experience and his knowledge. And if he's like willing to adapt to like new technologies and new processes, then I didn't think that his age wasn't necessarily like a problem. And then like with him going on vacation too, I just felt like he could have stayed on vacation and still like spent an hour like helping his junior analysis, like being like, oh, here's a problem or whatever. But then I also feel like he was on vacation, he was with his family. Like I feel like, I don't know, that necessarily wasn't I don't know. In my opinion, felt like he was on vacation, he was having family time, like his time should be spent with his family. That was kind of my opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's hard, especially with our view of the family, you know, as members of the church, for us to kind of try and understand how a job can take over more importance than that of a family. But from what I understood from Stephen Connor, is he's expecting this senior advisor to literally work there 7 days a week and to always be on call. I think he used the words as a doctor's on call. That's what he expects his senior advisor to be. But the biggest thing for me with David Hughes was their first interview, when Stephen Connor at one point was confused at who was conducting the interview. So I feel like with that, I feel like David Hughes is going to bring a lot of pride into the job. Like, this is how I've gotten this far. Like, this is how I do things. And I don't think that's going to create the environment that Stephen Connor's so proud that him and his team have created, you know? I think it'll create a huge divide of, well, this is how I did it. This is the way that I do things. Like, I think pride will be a huge thing with David Hughes.
So I had a little bit different of opinion about when he said, oh, who's interviewing who, because it didn't seem like David was like taking over. It sounded more like he was trying to find out information about the other company, you know, who he would be working for. So how I read it, it didn't sound like he was trying to take over the interview, but he was still trying to find out information, like if that was what he wanted.
That's a good insight to it. I didn't think about it that way. I thought about it from the point of, if I was interviewing somebody older than me, what I would be thinking when it was coming to the interview process.
Yeah. But it is true, because like when you are going through the interviewing process, you do want to like get to know the company to make sure that they're like a good fit for you.
Yeah. So you're kind of interviewing each other in a sense.
So then we're going to go on to Sonia. Let's double check. I didn't write down Sonia's last name.
Mitha?
But yeah, Sonia. So with Sonia, I think it's my turn to give the first one again. But with Sonia, what I liked about her was really wasn't anything about compensation or being the top dog, being the senior advisor, or anything like that. She really was interested in how the company functioned, how everybody worked together, and if everyone enjoyed working as a team, or if there was contention with the whole group. So I thought the way that Sonia went about it was she was trying to instill that teamwork that had been brought up throughout the whole article, you know. And it wasn't, what I also liked about her was she didn't come up from a firm that was well established on Wall Street, you know. She moved from the West Coast and kind of built her way up from not so much the bottom, but she built her way up with nearly no context. So I like that to me, it showed her work ethic and her ability to, what's the word I'm looking for? Network, her ability to network with people, which were huge things that were talked about, of points that they're looking for in their next senior advisor. The only thing I liked also in her second interview, and when she was able to take international calls with the business people, how everyone was like, she might not have experience at this level, but she knows exactly what she's talking about. So we have no doubt that she can fulfill the role. The only thing I didn't like was her little kids that she has at home and her desire to stay at home. I feel like that could cause a lot of networking issues for her. And then I think we'll just go with Casey. Casey, you have anything to add?
No, I liked what you said. I liked how she kind of came and she was asking about the culture. She was asking about like the gender equality. She was asking like all these questions to really like get to know the firm. One thing I thought was kind of funny is like when it was talking about the beginning of like her first interview, how she was like on the phone and like writing with like a SpongeBob pen.
Yeah.
And that necessarily like isn't the most like professional like thing for her to be doing. Like if you're having someone that's like going out and like meeting with clients, like they probably shouldn't be like carrying around a SpongeBob pen. But I mean, it wasn't like a huge deal. I just thought it was kind of funny.
I don't know. I would take it the other way, that she wouldn't be your cookie cutter employee, and she would open up like doors that other people couldn't, because she's not afraid to show a little bit of a personality.
Yeah, that's true too.
Oh, Debbie, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So with Sonia, the things that I thought were kind of a drawback, again, they've been mentioned, is, well, she did work for this smaller company, but the schedule and her travel flexibility to accommodate with her small children, she really wasn't interested in doing that. But it does sound like that she has good virtual skills, and people right away were taking to her and being able to connect with her. So though she doesn't want to travel, she can still do the, the virtual pretty well. So, and then some of her other things, it seemed like that she would just be, a natural to be a part of the team. It seems like that she's able to mesh with people pretty easily. And then, I'm sorry, my daughter walked away with stuff in the oven and it beeped. It's going to burn. So just a second.
It's all good.
Sorry.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the intern, or not the intern, but the junior analyst that they have in the position right now in RENA. Does anybody kind of, I think we'll let Casey, because I just went, but Casey, what are your first thoughts on RENA?
Well, one, I think people don't have a lot of faith in her. They kind of like don't want to pick her. They want there to find someone who has like more experience than her. But I think that, and I mean, I agree with that, but I think that she also has some like, she knows the company, she worked with the previous senior analyst, and so she kind of knows how the company works, she knows how he works, she knows the kind of things he did, and so I don't think that they should like just rule her out like immediately just because she's like just the junior analyst. I think that they should take her into consideration and not just use her as someone, if we can't find someone better, then we'll take her. Because that's kind of what I got as I was reading it, that it's like, well, if we don't find someone better, then we're going to take her, I guess. But like hoping to find someone better. But I don't think that they should just rule her out, because I think she has a lot of like experience working with the company that she could bring to it.
And Debbie, what were your thoughts?
So I'm not so sure about RENA. So I know she's been the junior analyst for Peter Thompson. If they were confident, if Stephen Connor was confident in hiring her, he would have hired her. He wouldn't have directly told her, if I can find a more senior person, I'm hiring that person. Some of the things that they mentioned about her is that she was an introvert, and it hindered her ability to mesh with the other employees. And these are this is her team. These are the people that she works with. So my concern was, how are they going to have her working with clients if she is being an introvert with people on an everyday basis? How would that? So that's where I was like not too sure about her for this position. It doesn't mean she's not a good employee, and other positions would be good for her, but not this one.
That's the bummer for her. In a way, I feel empathetic for her, because the situation basically is the grass is greener on the other side. So we have RENA right now. We know exactly what she can do for our company. Maybe there's somebody else who could do better. It's not like maybe the grass was better on the other side. It's not like a concrete evidence. RENA's doing a fine job where she is, but it's always that possibility of somebody better. So it's a hard situation for her to be in, because she wants to do her best. At the same time, she's been told there might be somebody better, which is that's a horrible place to be in, because you want your employer to have faith in you. which finally takes us into Seth. So, Debbie, what were your first thoughts with Seth?
Let me see. So he is currently on his way up in the rankings. Oh, he's the guy that brought his testimonials from clients.
Mm-hmm.
And that made the interview a bit awkward. And then also one of the concerns was how fast that Seth wanted to leave his current position after he just received the runner-up ranking of number 2, I think it was, and he's just ready to move on. So I think that was a concern. And then also some of the positives were that he has an invigorating personality. People are drawn to him. That would make working with clients an easy transition. Let me see. And, he does have the possibility of rising fast, but I don't know. There's just something about Seth that's I'm not quite sold on him.
Yeah, what I was thinking about was he's just way too risky of a hire. There's no way that I can guarantee that Seth is going to be what he was, He doesn't have really that long of a record for me to be like, oh, okay, this guy's consistent and he's going to be consistent for the next decade. He doesn't really have anything of a track record, in my opinion. So he's my highest risk employee or person to employ, in my opinion, just because he doesn't really have experience as a senior analyst or even a junior analyst. He's brand new, He's super excited to jump around all over the place, whoever pays him the most money. So he might be fantastic. He might take the company to new heights, but at the same time, he could leave tomorrow or be a complete failure. So in my opinion, the risk is not worth the reward. And Casey, how you feeling?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I feel like kind of like what you were saying, like he reached that level 2 ranking and then it's like, okay, it's time to leave. And so I feel like, he might do really, really well and like succeed and then be like, okay, I've reached like as much as I can like progress here. I'm leaving and going somewhere else. And then, yeah, also I thought it was like with his packet that he brought, like, I mean, I think that it's good that like you show that like clients like appreciate you, but I just thought that it was like kind of weird that he would like bring in this like whole packet and like almost kind of prideful too, like, look at me, look what I can do. I thought that was kind of weird.
So now the next question is, who would you hire? So we'll go down the line. Let's see. So they want the exact question. Yeah. So just basically, who would you hire and why? So Casey, who would you hire and why would you do it?
I don't know. I think that out of all of them, I would probably hire David. I think that like he's old, but I feel like he has a lot of experience and I feel like I don't know. I didn't love any of the other ones, and so it was kind of like that was the one that was left. I didn't really want to stay with Rita, and I didn't like with Gerald. I didn't love him because he was like really focused on compensation and he was late. And then like with Sonia, she would probably be my second pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt that it was hard with her having to like not be able to travel and like stay home with her kids. Like I just felt like we needed someone who could go out there and like be with the clients and be working with them, and that Sonia really didn't meet that. And then like with Seth, he wasn't my favorite either, and so I probably like by like process of elimination, I think that David was my favorite.
Okay, so we got David for Casey, and Debbie, what are you going with?
So ultimately, I also went with David. It was after a little bit of consideration, though, trying to decide which one through process of elimination. He brings with him the star ranking that Stephen Connor's looking for. The risks kind of are, he wants to kind of limit his travel, but he has been in the position for the past 15 years. Some of the other things is that He has the highest score for the analyst rankings for all of the candidates. His ranking was like 14.03, and that was almost double Peter Thompson at 7.43. So with his ranking being so high, that's kind of what helped me pick him, because Stephen Connor wants a star performer now. Sonia Mita wanted flexibility with her schedule, and Stephen Connor didn't seem like that was a problem for her. So I was thinking that he could offer David Hughes the same accommodation and kind of limit travel and let him be a little bit more virtual as well. I figured with, the experience he had, I think he was only, 45 or 50, but in compared to the other candidates, that does make him older, but he's not like old, dead,
Yeah.
So yeah, David Hughes ultimately is my choice.
It's interesting. I'm actually different than you guys. I chose Sonia, just based on how well she meshed with everyone in the office. And I really respected how she just dropped everything on the West Coast and then built up from the ground up. So to me, that shows that she has the work ethic and the desire that I want in my team. So that's why I chose her. Yeah, it was a concern about her little kids, but if she's going to be here for the next 30 years, then those kids are going to grow. So I feel like if we show her a little bit of accommodation and a little bit of respect, then we'll get it returned in the future. So we picked Sonia and then David Hughes. So now I'm supposed to show you their compensation. So let me pull that up. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to share my screen. And then let's see if we can make this. Are you guys able to see?
Yes.
Perfect. So if you just take a quick shot. So you guys, David will be the most expensive salary that we have.
Oh, yeah.
And then Sonia is basically half of David, but also 2 times what Rena's salary is. Whereas David is basically 5 of Rena. So is everybody able to take a good look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just jot it down real quick.
I didn't continue to take that into consideration with the salary.
Okay. So now we're going to go back. Let's see if I can get back now. Oh, maybe. Okay. Now we're going to go here. Oh, there we go. Stop share. Now we're in it. See, now we can figure it out. So now we'll go back to our question. So now that we know what they're being paid and their compensation, does that change anybody's idea or mind about the person that they chose?
I can't say right off the bat that it would, but it definitely, if I had time to kind of think about it and process it, because I would want to find out how much do we expect David to bring in? Is he going to be worth that price? Is he going to, pay for himself and then some?
What were we paying the person before him? Does it say?
I believe it does. Oh, no, it doesn't. It just says the double of what we were paying, and then just the 4 that we were talking about.
Because didn't it say in the case that they could have paid what he was wanting?
Yeah, they could have.
And so I think that would be interesting to know too, is what they were willing to pay him before he left.
I wanted to know more information about why they didn't try to retain him. Why did they just let him go when he was good in that position?
When he'd done so much for it and.
So then the next question, we're kind of jumping ahead, but the next question is should Stephen give Rena a permanent offer or hire outside of the company? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I read that wrong. So should Stephen give Rena a permanent offer or hire outside of the company? I feel like we talked about this before. kind of the consensus that I gathered, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we feel like there were better candidates outside of the office, but Rena should have been given a more of an equal opportunity. Is that kind of what we're agreeing on?
I agree with that. I think Rena is a great employee.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that position probably wasn't for her, but I still think there's places for her to grow within the company.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would want to keep her as an employee for sure.
And then our next question is, should Stephen have let Peter go? And I feel like we need more information on this, because I feel like there's more to it if we're willing to hire somebody that's more expensive to do Peter's job when Peter is doing a pretty decent job, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, because in the case, it sounded like the only problem was that they didn't want to pay, or that he wanted more compensation, and they could have paid it, but then he didn't. Like, it didn't sound like there were any other problems with him.
Yeah, the only other, I mean, that's very common to do, is to kind of fish around and then be like, hey, like this company's willing to pay me this, we guys match it. Like that's usually a very common thing to do. So I don't, maybe it stung with the whole loyalty that they preach at the company, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at that point it was kind of like, well, if Stephen has 1 foot out the door, or if Peter has 1 foot out the door, then maybe it's just time to let him go because we want 100%, you know, or something along those lines. That's the only thing that I can really think of, is that they would just want 100% devotion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's kind of I really don't know. I don't feel like we have enough information.
I feel the same way too. Because we just have to speculate on what's happening.
So then, does the performance at one firm guarantee high performance at another firm?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's no way. No way at all. Because you could be basically just riding off the coattails of your boss, you know? Your boss could be making decisions and then you just act upon it. There's really no way to guarantee that what you do at one firm will be exactly what you do at another.
Correct.
Casey, how you feeling?
I think that the people you work with, the culture of the company, I think there's so many other factors that just because you're successful at one place doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be successful at another place.
Mm-hmm. And then was everybody able to look at the human capital chart that we got this week?
Yes.
I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Okay, perfect.
So basically what this was is what I kind of thought it was just basically a distinction of the skills that you bring to the workplace. So in my opinion, it was like your general human capital is basically anything that you're competent to do. Somebody that has a degree should be able to do all of the general human capital for that degree, you know? And then the strategic human capital, in my opinion, was what you gained in the workplace or through experiences that you had on the job, which still wouldn't be very distinct to you as an individual, but rather to the specific job that you have. And then when it comes to the industry human capital, I had a hard time distinguishing this and the strategic capital. Does anybody have any idea of how to distinguish it?
I think right there it says like it's industry specific knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big part of it. Because once you learn something about one industry, it doesn't necessarily transfer to a different industry.
But I feel like that's a lot like a strategic human capital, you know? I'm trying to think out loud and trying to really solidify a difference.
In one of my classes, we were talking about how it was my accounting class, and he was talking about how this guy was like a really good accountant, but he like went to work at this accounting place, and they like did they audited a lot of farmers, and it talked about how like he didn't know like anything about like when the best time to buy a new tractor was, or like when you like, I don't even know, but like planted or harvested or the weather. Like he just really didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he went and he learned everything he could about the farming industry so that he could then help his farmers succeed, so then he could succeed, because if his farmers are continuing to like be in business, then like he's going to be in business. And so I think that it might have to do like kind of with that, like you know about like the industry, like I mean not necessarily that's like an example in accounting, but like you know like about the industry, you know things that like make it succeed, make it not succeed, whereas strategic I think is more like there's a process and you know how to do it.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but strategic would be knowing that Q4 in the United States most likely will have the highest sales due to all of the holidays, whereas the industry human capital would be opening up the newest iPhone, looking inside of it and deciding to buy those stocks based on what companies make, like the microprocessor and all of that stuff. Is that kind of what we're talking about? Maybe. Like you would be,
I think
you
we're all
would have,
fuzzy on it.
so you know that the new iPhone is going to sell millions and millions, you know? So what you would do is you would open it up, look inside, see what companies make like the microprocessor, the camera, and all that stuff, and then you would invest in those companies. To expect,
like investing in the company that made this chip or that made that.
Yeah, to expect gains from everybody buying the new iPhone. That would kind of be an industry, because you'd be looking into a specific industry trying to figure out how to gain capital from that, I guess.
Yes, I think yes, that's seeming to make sense, and it's following with the.
So it's just a more specific strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then relationship is basically, you can just transfer that for leadership. You know, your ability to lead people and for people to respect you and trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And then company specific, that's really just, that knows, I mean, that word right there, what I got from that is that you've been with the company, you know exactly how everything functions and how best to facilitate the best growth for the company, right?
Yes.
And that would be very unique, which is why it's down here with rarely portable.
Correct.
So I think we are just about done. Does anyone have anything they would like to share, or anything that we didn't bring up that you feel like needs to be addressed?
I think we went over everything. I think we did pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, thank you guys again for stopping by. I'll send this recording out as soon as we finish it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
See you guys next week.
Goodbye. Have a good week.
Bye.